Hey YouTube, welcome back to the channel. To start off, I should probably bring it up just to be safe. When I bring up a point of view, I'm not actually endorsing that viewpoint. I wish I didn't have to say this, but we seem to live in a world where sometimes words are twisted or taken out of context. So I thought I should make this preliminary statement just to be sure. Anyway, on to the video. Today we're going to be talking about Sam Harris because I just finished watching his 2-hour-long conversation with Dave Rubin. By the way, if you haven't watched it, that's a fantastic conversation. Harris goes into not only Trump, but his thoughts on consciousness and his upcoming conversations with Jordan Peterson, which are taking place later this month and early on in July. Anyway, one thing Harris said struck me as incredibly relevant to the content in this channel, so I just had to make a video on it. Here's a clip of that notable moment.
So you want 100% of the people in the country to know, how government works. I mean, that would be great. But the fact that politics is so important to people, the fact that their identity is wrapped up in it, the fact that you just can't get away from it, that's a sign of real dysfunction. That's a sign of things not working.
To give you some context, the broader issue that Sam and Dave were discussing was the over-politicization that seems to appear everywhere in our culture today. Sam basically says we're talking about politics way too much, which I have to agree with. And not only that we have internalized this conversation, which leads me to exactly the topic that we're going to be talking about today. I call this internalization self-identified beliefs. These are quite simply beliefs that have become more than simply acquisitions of knowledge. They become more of a representation of people's identity. In other words, their beliefs become themselves. This does not necessarily apply to all beliefs. However, far too many people today, in my opinion, internalize their beliefs, which explains the kind of outrage, ideological certainty, and obstinacy that runs rampant throughout our culture. I've decided to actually make this the first part in a 2-part video series. This video is going to be on what these self-identified beliefs are, why they occur, and why they're problematic. Self-internalized beliefs lay the foundation for political polarization. Not only that, they manifest themselves in many different ascribed identities. So for example, race, gender, class differences, sexual orientation differences, religious differences. All of these are factors that induce political polarization. Harris's statement applies to how all of our interactions these days seem to be focused through a political lens. In other words, our entire conceptions of people's identities are influenced by politics. Fact that makes belief identification inevitable. In fact, there are several specific reasons for the appeal of internalizing beliefs. The first is that humans enjoy simplicity, and certain beliefs allow people to adopt a worldview, a simple worldview, that allow them to make sense out of an otherwise incomprehensibly complex world. For example, believing everything that Trump does is bad is a very simple way to define all of Trump's action. Whether it's true or not, or whether you believe it or not, is a completely different matter. The important thing here is that it is a catch-all way of understanding him. The second reason is that certain beliefs actually apply to our identity. And not only do they apply to our identities, we actually are strengthened by internalizing these beliefs. An example of this would be a white person asserting the white race is superior to other races. Such a person would want to internalize this belief because it actually boosts his or her ego. And finally, the third reason that humans would internalize a belief is that humans crave purpose. And certain beliefs give people a purpose with which to act in the world. One example would be somebody who subscribes to a particular religion in order to inform them about how to act within the world. But what does this all have to do with political polarization, you may ask? Well, I'll tell you. As Harris alluded to in the conversation, internalizing beliefs has repercussions. And while he didn't really go into the individual specifics, there is one main problem that I would like to point out. Though it's something that Harris doesn't talk about here, it is something he talks about quite often. That is, internalized beliefs are basically impossible to criticize without inducing some sort of backfire effect in the person whose beliefs you are targeting. This can have major ramifications because it prevents bad ideas from being eliminated efficiently. This is obviously unfortunate at the individual level if you're trying to rid somebody of white supremacy, but it's downright terrifying when the entire society around you is unwilling to see the flaws within its ideas. Harris would say that it's so important not to conflate the criticism of ideas with the criticism of our character. However, once you've internalized a belief, it becomes nearly impossible to do one without doing the other. And ultimately, here's what we need to recognize. Beliefs are meant to be scrutinized. They are meant to be criticized. And all of this is relevant because it allows us to form more nuanced ideas, which keep our complex society functioning. If we're not able to handle our beliefs being challenged and subsequently dispense with the bad ideas, how are we ever going to expect the good ones to actually win out? And with that thought, I'll leave you to ponder the solutions to this problem until the next video. As always, if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, share it with your friends, and of course, if you agree with our mission, subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching.